Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Today, I will speak about animal tales, belief narratives, and COVID-19 in Argentinian folklore. It was a research I began long ago, and it was the first results have been published in a book. And this research has been a pretext to give for my students who made an audiovisual presentation that we are going to see a little fragment about COVID-19. So let's reflect about folk tales and belief narratives and initial approach. Next, please. Understanding folklore as a sum of traditional expressions of knowledge operating within a community, comprising an embodiment of social beliefs, as Abraham says. We are focusing the attention on folk narratives as verbal expressions of social identity, and on legends that, which, as the Grimm says, are folk tales historically grounded. And as Linda Deck says, speaking about legend and belief is a pleonasm, since all legend deals with beliefs. So I understand belief with Reimers and Cortez, the Dictionary of Semiotics, as a modal expression of certainty, whose true value depends on a subjective or intersubjective agreement. So the belief narratives explore the boundaries of historical experience with the cognitive modality of belief, as modal expression in which the true value of a discourse depends on social consensus. And there is also always a quest of believability supported by argumentative strategies oriented to make the discourse acceptable as possible. So I will deal with belief narratives as alternative itineraries of folklores and under the same matrix, and to reflect about this concept of matrix, I will deal with in a minute. So, animal tales. The one of animal tales is a folk narrative genre that reflects the atmosphere of daily life through the humanization of the vernacular fauna, as Kovaci says. And the protagonists are personified animals who, because are personified, who carry out a series of actions articulated in sequences, which take place in a fictional world. Each version is organized according to thematic, structural, and stylistic patterns or matrices established in the diachronic transmission process, which includes scriptural recreations. Today, I won't deal with scriptural recreations, but it's worth remembering that in Argentinian folklore, there are a lot of scriptural recreations. But today, I will deal with oral versions only. These alternative versions of narrative matrix are transformation and with a transformation connected with local beliefs by means of changing details. This is what I will deal with today. Animal tales, I will deal with animal tales, pointing out the mixture of genres, the folktale and legends in a polyphonic message. So, let's go to reflect about the relevance of details, matrices, hypertext, and social beliefs. As aforesaid, folk matrices have narrative patterns which combine thematic features, structural and stylistic ones, identified by intertextual comparison of versions. So the folktale genesis deals with the transformation of these matrices in different cultural environments by additions, suppression, substitution of displacement of changing details. And as Mukarovsky points out, details can be understood as the basic semantic units in folk art and as mnemonic tracks which activated these matrices. The itineraries of the folk matrices are flexible and reproduce the flexible connection of memory, similar to the disseminative structure of a hypertext. I understand hypertext with Nelson as a flexible combination of textual blocks, freely set by the user of an informatic system. From informatics, Nelson uses this concept, and instead of an informatic system reproducing the the flexible connections of memory, I make an analogy between the flexible structure of the folktale and the one of a hypertext. With this transformation of thematic topics as the ones listed in the ATU index of tale types, and I added to this the structural patterns, the sequences, these flexible sequences, and the rhetoric strategies, which are transformed by means of the influence of social beliefs bound to vernacular context. So let's reflect about rhetoric of believing. Rhetoric is the art of persuasion whose aim is not to reason but to convince, appealing to belief, as Aristotle points out. I understand the narrative with Brunner as a cognitive principle which organizes experience in a sequential way and which provides structural patterns to articulate social beliefs. So in the true value of the narrative construction of beliefs depends on a collective agreement. And I will deal as well in this presentation with the argumentative use of metaphors as not only as figures of language, but also as cognitive issues condensating multiple meanings. And underlining that belief narratives go beyond the borders of epistemic knowledge towards ontological arenas of belief. So let's reflect about believing and the quest of truth. In the belief narrative, there's always a quest of believability supported by argumentative strategies based on modal affirmation. And belief narratives such as myth are experienced as real, as Anna-Lena Sikala says. And I will, it's worth remembering the poetic of history as White studies, with this fictional elaboration or poetic elaboration of reality in a dynamic tension with the illusion of reality of fiction pointed out by Barth. In Argentinian folk tales, there is also always an interweaving of fiction and reality, opening the boundaries of folklore genres such as American towards a fantastic and legendary discourse. Not only in Argentinian folk tales, but I will focus my attention in Argentinian folklore. Folk tales. It's worth remembering that in Argentina, in the Argentinian folk narrative, we don't have fairies, so animals cover the role of fairies and other mythical beings as well. But for instance, as dwarfs, as goblins and other mythical creatures. So summing up, there's this intertwining between of folklore genres, animal tales of belief narratives, and there's understood as narrative expression of the differentiation identity of local groups with a vernacular worldview which mixes up Hispanic and migration culture with indigenous culture in a sort of Creole culture. And it can be mirrored in the texture of the folk tales that we deal with. So let's speak about the Argentinian contextual variants of animal tales. Refreshing first that animal tales are a distinctive expression of cultures whose origin is as back, can go as far back as the humanity, whose protagonists are personified animals who, as Ford said, carry out action articulated in sequences in a fictional world. And they, in the Argentinian folk tales, are animals of the vernacular fauna. The dominant rhetoric strategy, as Ford said, is the personification. And let's say that refresh this intercultural crossroad between Eastern and Western traditions, from Greco-Roman culture to Christianity, and this mixing up with Eastern traditions. Let's say that if to Argentina arrived the Spanish conquerors, but there has been the Arabic invasion to Spain, so the Eastern culture is as well reflected in Argentina. first through the Spaniards, and also with the new waves of migration. For instance, in the Argentinian Northwest, I will focus the attention in Northwestern Argentinian folk tales, so where the Eastern culture is present as well. So these are intertwining between European, indigenous, and creole culture, with variants expressed in a local worldview. The main protagonist of Argentinian narrative is the fox, not the wolf or not the jackal, as in European cultures, but the fox, and the armadillo called quirquincho. So we have two main cycles. One in which the fox, as the bigger animal, is defeated by the local armadillo, who is, you can see here the armadillo, who is a smaller and more clever than the fox. But in the other series, the enemy of the fox is the tiger, and the cunning fox manages to outwit the tiger or other animals, or even the man. So we will focus the attention today, I will focus the attention today in the fox as the clever animal who defeats other ones, or even men. In the Hispanic tradition, the fox is called John, the wife is called Jane, and the children Johnny. So we will speak about John the Fox. So I will focus the attention in the repertoire of this folk narrator, Amalia Vargas, from the Quechua culture from the Chibcha nation of the Argentinian Northwest in the limit with Bolivia, and whose repertoire, told by her mother, comprises two main folk tales I will deal with today: the fox and the magic pot, and the donkey that sheet silver, who, because he is personified. And as interest, I will deal with the fox as the first of the animal by Horacio Castro, for the Humahuaca culture in the same zone as Amalia Vargas, and the Salamanca by Marino Córdoba, also of the Western Argentinian province of La Rioja. And I will point out the relevance of these changing details in the Argentinian social context, in which struggle for survival in a difficult environment is the dominant topic. And I will point out the poetic word, the hallmark of this individual narrator, whose distinctive feature is the performance, the body performance, the corporal performance in this folk tale. So let's go to the first one, which is the fox and the magic pot. Next, please. The fox and the magic pot. She presents herself as Amalia Vargas. I am Quechua from the Chibcha nation, from the border with Bolivia, from the mountains. I am going to tell you the story my mom told me. The protagonist is John the Fox, and he's one of the most mischievous animals. Right, he's a trickster. He's one who always makes fun of the people. Hey, my mom says that in the past, the fox was always dressed in brown, and that he was always wearing a brown scarf and a little brown hat. We have here social beliefs, collective belief between this relationship between animals and men, and this anthropomorphic transformation of the fox. So Hugh, because once upon a time, in past times, some people were men during the day, but in the evening and in the night, they became animals. So the fox was a man whose job was to be a salesman. He sold all kind of stuff, right? For instance, he sold pots. And then Amalia Vargas tells this aversion dealing with the fox and the magic pot, which is an alternative itinerary of ATU number 1539, Prevalence and Gullibility, in which the fox intends to mock on the people, selling this magic pot. He takes it to the fair, and Amalia points out that the fairs are very common in her culture, in indigenous, as a sort of indigenous markets, to which the fox took this pot and he made a hole beneath the soil and hid the embers, and then poured water into the pot, and then he pretended that this pot was self-boiling, and he sold it to a man. And when the man took this pot to his house after having paid a lot of money, he realizes that this pot doesn't boil by itself. So the possessor is always tricked. So, but Amalia finishes this tale saying that was a mockery the folks did that, right? Since he was a person during the day, a person who made fun of the people, selling those things, right? Mocking at the people. And that was the people could realize that it was a fox because he was always wearing his brown scarf. So let's go to the matrix. As a foresight, the thematic topics is ATU and AT 1539. They use self-magic object and animals, the self-cooking pots, and Sobson motif K112.1, a pot that cooks by itself. Let's point out that in Argentinian folk tales are more likely to be similar to Arne Thompson's classification than to ATU, because perhaps because Thompson was American, I don't know. But since Arne Thompson is more synthetic, perhaps this is the reason why the thematic description is more likely to be similar to Arne Thompson. The composite structure has one microsequence, which could be divided into sequences, selling the pot and discovering the trick. And the rhetoric structure is a personification of the main rhetoric strategy is a personification of animals, in which fox is a metaphor of the worldview of Quechua culture and a parody of the magic function, because Amalia says that in order for the pot to boil, they had to pronounce a sort of charm, which was Irvioshita, Kirpioshita, that's to say, boil little pot. Kirpe, it's saying Quechua language, also boil this reduplication, saying in Spanish, both in Spanish and in Quechua. And it's a sort of a parody of a magic tale in which these magic objects have magic properties. So let's go to the intertext. I made an intertextual comparison of these tales with one by Horacio Castro, which the one by Amalia Vargas, I collected it, I recorded in March 2020. And so this one was in 2002, that's to say in 2002. It was Horacio Castro, is from, as I said, from the Omahuaca culture, and he tells this tale. I'll tell you what happened long ago, in times of the creator of everything, the female goddess, the Pachamama. It is said that long time ago, the Pachamama created everything. She created the sun with the fire she took from inside her. She created the stars and the moon and the snow on the hills. She created the water. She created everything. And she created all the animals in the beginning. And the cutest, the dominant animal was the fox. And all the other animals were smaller than him. So the Pachamama decided to give to the other animals some of the attributes that the fox had more than enough, because the fox was the only to fly, the only to swim, the only to run. In this way, birds began to fly, fishes began to swim, and so on. The fox was still the first of the animal because he preserved his intelligence, but at last the Pachamama restricted this privilege of the fox and gave a part of it to the last one, an ugly monkey, which turned out to be the man. Since then, the cunning fox has been compelled to defend himself against the danger provoked by the man who began to damage nature. So in this way, the fox was forced to trickery and deceit in order to survive. He was compelled to take advantage of some actions achieved by the man who began destroying nature. He even dressed as a man in order to achieve his tricks. So let's say these relationships between the man and the fox, and this characteristic of be dressed as a man, as Amalia Vargas pointed out in her narrative, and this mythic tale in which Horacio Castro explained the origin of why the fox was compelled to trickery. I dealt with this in another presentation, so I won't waste time in this, but this mythical tale was used by Horacio Castro in his repertoire when he told a series of tales dealing with the fox and the armadillo and the fox and the tiger, and why the fox was able to deceive the tiger. And then he said, well, after having told all these tales, I will tell you another tale explaining why the fox is compelled to trickery. So in this moment, the main interest is to speak about this. This, please, the previous one. Well, the fox, the previous one, please. Yeah, so he even dressed as a man in order to achieve these tricks. Next one, just as the fox as a metaphor of the Quechua culture and interaction of animals and humans. The fox as a demiurgic animal. Why demiurgic? Because in other tales, for the fox even was a sort of intermediate creature that sent message to the Pachamama and was the one who, a sort of mediator between these female goddess and men in certain opportunities. And these interactions about men and animals, all of them have been created by this female goddess, the Pachamama, who is in the vernacular cultures and earthly divinities. And he is compelled to survive by trickery in order to survive in a world commanded by the man who damaged nature. So let's go to the other one, to the next one. The second and the second tale of the repertoire of Amalia Vargas is a donkey that or who, because it's personified, who cheats silver. The protagonist of this story is the trickster Pedro Dimal. It is well known that Pedro Dimal is a famous trickster like the fox, and that, well, he is also a merchant who takes advantage of people going from one village to another in a quest of adventures. And it's also said that he had a donkey, a single donkey. So once he said, what am I going to do with this donkey, which is useless? So he decided, oh, well, I am going to sell it. I am going to tell the people that it is a magic donkey that cheats money. Here in the Quechua communities, one of our divinities is the Equeco, the divinity of wealth. So this mixture between a folk tale and social beliefs in the Equeco. She associated the divinity of wealth with this will of Pedro Dimal to become wealthy. So Pedro Dimal put some silver in the ass of the donkey. He put various bills as well as silver coins. And then he went to the fair to sell the donkey. That here in my town in Western Argentina, in the zone of the Andes, the mountains, there are many fairs where people used to go to buy and sell goods. So he went to the fairs and he said, well, here I have a donkey for sale, but this donkey is going to make you a millionaire. You have just to turn around in circles and you have to tell the donkey to cheat money and he will do so. In our culture, the circular movement is very important. There are always circles called muyu. These circles reproduce the cycle of nature. And she makes also this association with this local worldview. And then he began saying, little donkey, please cheat money, little donkey, please cheat money. The nice donkey silver coins. But the donkey, and he managed to sell this donkey to a man, and the man began to make circles like a fool. But when the buyer of took this donkey to his house, the donkey only dropped dung. So he was tricked. Always the possessor of the pseudo magic object become tricks. What the donkey was it going to shit? Only dung, just that, my mother said. So let's go to the next slide. The thematic topic is also AT 1539, the youth who sells pseudo magic objects. In this case, the gold dropping horse. The composite structure is always two sequences, selling the donkey and discovering the trick. The rhetoric construction is a comparison between men and animals. The parody of the magic function of language is charm, and the parody of magic folk tales. So these are cataloged under ATU and Arne Thompson as human jokes and anecdotes dealing with man, and the man who is clever and survives by trickery. So let's go to the intertext with ritual speech, to the next slide, in which we can make an intertextual connection with ritual speech. I dealt in another presentation with other part of this text of the Salamanca, which I collected in La Rioja in 1987. The Salamanca is the deal with the devil, in this ceremony in which whose distinctive features are the transformation. Those who don't achieve the deal with the devil used to transform them in ugly animals, but there were always a transformation of beautiful or tasty goods or tasty things or beautiful things into waste or into ugly things. Marino Cordova says the Salamanca is a rite in which a man or a woman sell their soul to the devil, and the climax is the deal with the devil. Let's go to the next slide, in which in a meta-narrative clause, Marino Cordova says, what happens in the Salamanca is truth. It's a rite that must be accomplished. But from this rite, people find inspiration to tell both histories and stories. So while the fictional tale and rite can be alternative itineraries of narrative matrices, the tales are closer to the fictional domain, and the rite is closer to social belief. And these mixtures of different narrative genres. So let's go to the next one. The intertext is the Salamanca by Marino Cordova. This in which the narrator, another narrator of the Mapuche culture, says Pedro Rimán, which is the protagonist, is a personification of the fox in the Mapuche culture. This opposition between a beautiful appearance and a devil essence, and a tasty appearance of food in Donkey Dung. Just yesterday, a rascal was telling me that once he was returning home late at night and he arrived to a canyon and he heard music and was invited to dance. And so he danced and danced, he ate some tasty food, and where he was about to return home, they gave him a parcel to take to his mother. He took the parcel and he returned home, and the following day he woke up, he said, and he went to open the package, and he realized that the tasty stuff had changed into Donkey Dung. And he told it to his friends, and his friends asked him, do you know where have you been? In a Salamanca. So we make this intertextual connection between tasty food transforming to Donkey Dung, and this transformation, this dynamics between tasty goods and ugly things, and say that in the background of social beliefs, these transformations are part of the cultural background of people. So let's go to the final part of this presentation, which has to do with animalia, an audiovisual recreation of animal tales in time of COVID-19. I gave to my students as a foresight this this research I have done, mainly the text by Horacio Castro, and they made a recreation in an audiovisual, in a sort of TV newscast circulating in YouTube. I will show you 30 seconds then of this presentation, in which the fox, as the president of Animalia Republic, is giving instructions to the animal regarding how to take care of irresponsible humans in times of COVID-19, which require a strict lockdown. There is a sort of dialogue between the TV presenter, the TV host, who is a caterpillar, personified caterpillar, who says, last minute, attention, our president will address the citizens of Animalia Republic from his country residence, the otter. Our president, Alberto Fernandez, from his country residence, addressed us Argentinian citizens to give us instructions about how the lockdown would be and how about the measures dealing with COVID. And the fox, as a personified animal, says, dear citizens of Animalia, our world has been attacked by the terrible pandemic of COVID-19, which is threatening our human pets. We humans as pets, let's take care of them. And then he says that the human pets used to damage nature, as Horacio Castro said, and that used to be irresponsible. So it was the duty of the animals to take care about us humans. And the other intertext of the students were these news pieces of news regarding animals that regained space when we humans were in lockdown. For instance, the dolphin of Venice swimming in the channels, on the otters regaining the wetlands. And then, unfortunately, when the lockdown became more flexible, the men fenced the land, so unfortunately the otters were died. But in this period, he says also, the personified host, there was a legend telling that in the past, humans ruled the world and we animals were their pets. So this parody, this fox as a clever animals teaching how to deal with silly humans, and this metaphor of Animalia Republic in the COVID-19 pandemic context. So let's go to the conclusion. This itinerary through Argentinian animal tales revealed the permeability of folk narrative matrix toward contextual transformations, dealing with belief narratives mirroring both vernacular worldviews and contemporary contextual changes as COVID-19. And this serious warning against the damage to the natural ecosystem provoked by human actions rooted in vernacular cultures. This animal were reflecting in folk tales teach us how to take care of the environment to prevent global catastrophes such as the pandemic threats, and as well as earthquakes and other natural disasters, both local and global. All these preventions were mentioned in the discourse of the fox, of the personified fox, in the this sort of parody my students made. So thank you for your attention. Let's go to the next slide. And I would like to acknowledge Paulo Correa, who made the prologue to this book I managed to finish, to Ulo Balk, to whom I addressed a question dealing with his fantastic lecture dealing with Estonian hell. And he illuminated me thinking about Marino Cordova and how this potter managed to put in a sort of ceramic folk tale just these folk beliefs, because he himself was a collector of the histories of his own place of birth. And also to Miriam Mensei, who is always taking care of us and all these lectures, to Eva, whose technical support was so important, to the Belief Narrative Network, and to all of you, thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, really, and thank you, really.